Welcome to Reading the Bible with Pastor. Today we're on Genesis chapter 22, and we read that God tells Abraham to kill Isaac, but it's just a test. After these things, God tested Abraham and said to him, "Abraham?" And he said, "Here I am." Let's take a look at that word test. We can read more about it in James chapter 1, starting at verse 2. "Count it all joy, my brothers, when you meet trials of various kinds. For you know that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness. And let steadfastness have its full effect, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing." God is testing Abraham's faith here so that he would be steadfast in that promise that was given to him, that through Isaac, Abraham would be the father of many nations. We'll continue reading. He said, "Take your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah, and offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains, of which I shall tell you." Now, the Lord does not want people sacrificing their sons and daughters. And we can read about that in Deuteronomy chapter 12, starting at verse 31. "You shall not worship the Lord your God in that way. For every abominable thing that the Lord hates, they have done for their gods. For they even burn their sons and their daughters in the fire to their gods." The Lord does not want Abraham to sacrifice his son, but it does foreshadow the one perfect sacrifice of the only Son of God. And we can read about that in John 3:16, that very famous verse. "For God so loved the world that he gave his only Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish, but have eternal life." God gives the only Son in Jesus Christ as a sacrifice for us on the cross, not by fire, but by crucifixion, so that we would have forgiveness of sins. So this moment in history of Isaac being tested to sacrifice, Abraham being tested to sacrifice Isaac, is a foreshadowing of that wonderful sacrifice to come in Jesus Christ. We'll continue with verse 3. "So Abraham rose early in the morning, saddled his donkey, and took 2 of his young men with him, and his son Isaac. And he cut the wood for the burnt offering, and arose and went to the place of which God had told him. On the 3rd day Abraham lifted up his eyes, and saw the place from afar. Then Abraham said to his young men, 'Stay here with the donkey. I and the boy will go over there, and worship, and come again to you.' And Abraham took the wood of the burnt offering, and laid it on Isaac his son. And he took in his hand the fire and the knife. So they went both of them together. And Isaac said to his father Abraham, 'My father.' And he said, 'Here I am, son.' He said, 'Behold the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for a burnt offering?' Abraham said, 'God will provide for himself the lamb for a burnt offering, my son.' So they went both of them together." Abraham trusts in the Lord, and we can read in Hebrews 11:19 that Abraham had faith that even though he would sacrifice his son Isaac, God would bring him back to life. But that was not necessary. God would provide. When they came to the place of which God had told him, Abraham built the altar there, and laid the wood in order, and bound Isaac his son, and laid him on the altar on top of the wood. Then Abraham reached out his hand, and took the knife to slaughter his son. But the angel of the Lord called to him from heaven, and said, "Abraham, Abraham." And he said, "Here I am." He said, "Do not lay your hand on the boy, or do anything to him. For now I know that you fear God, seeing that you have not withheld your son, your only son, from me." And Abraham lifted up his eyes, and looked, and behold, behind him was a ram caught in a thicket by his horns. And Abraham went and took the ram and offered it up as a burnt offering instead of his son. So Abraham called the name of that place, "The Lord will provide." As it is said to this day, "On the mount of the Lord it shall be provided." And the angel of the Lord called to Abraham a second time from heaven, and said, "By myself I have sworn, declares the Lord, because you have done this, and have not withheld your son, your only son, I will surely bless you, and I will surely multiply your offspring as the stars of heaven, and as the sand that is on the seashore, and your enemies shall possess the gate of his enemies. Your offspring shall possess the gate of his enemies. And in your offspring shall all the nations of the earth be blessed, because you have obeyed my voice. In this verse, verse 18, we see that in his offspring, not in offsprings plural, but one, the nations would be blessed. And that one offspring through Abraham, his line, is Christ. So Abraham returned to his young men, and they arose and went together to Beersheba. And Abraham lived at Beersheba. Now after these things it was told to Abraham, Behold, Milcah has borne children to your brother Nahor. Uz his firstborn, Buz his brother, Kemuel, the father of Aram, Kesed, Hazo, Pildash, Dildlaph, and Bethuel. Bethuel fathered Rebekah. Rebekah would be the wife of Isaac later on. These 8 Milcah bore to Nahor, Abraham's brother. Moreover, his concubine, whose name was Reumah, bore Tebah, Gaham, Tahash, and Maachah. We'll pick up next time with Genesis chapter 23. Please subscribe to the channel and share this with others so that we can continue reading the Bible with Pastor.